Now I'd like to invite you to present on Stubborn Joy for us.
Yes, thank you. Again, I know we've been talking for a minute, and so again, I'm just happy to be in this space, and I feel like this is important. And so, like for me, I don't have anything after, and so as we've been kind of dialoguing, I'm like, this is something that's needed, and this is more important to me than like, oh well, we're running out of like we're on a time thing, right? So I do apologize. I want to go ahead and put that out there. And then very, very quickly, this has nothing to do with me, but you made me think about it, John, a little bit earlier in terms of like providing resource anyway. So there's a book by Cal Newport. It's called Digital Minimalism. So choosing a focused life in a noisy world. And I would strongly encourage folks to take a look at that book because it's, again, trying to find focus in this noisy world where everything is going on, everything is important, everything is a notification. And so that's been very, very helpful for me to recenter myself and my family during this particular time in quarantine. So if you get the opportunity, definitely pick that book up. So as we're transitioning, I'm really big on video. So forgive me if you're like, but I want to show this really quick video to what I feel is like joy in the highest sense of the good vibes. So you should be able to see and hear it. If you can't, let me know. But just looking at this guy is just like, wow, he is like at peace. He is happy. So I'll go ahead and share it. You might have seen it on social media, but I'll go ahead and put it up. And if you can't hear it, please let me know. And here it goes. So I wanted to show that. I know it's not like it's not super cool, so to speak. But that video did go viral a little bit earlier this year, and I just thought, man, if you're talking about stubborn joy, that is joy, right? Like that is it in action, right? Whatever was going on, he's riding on his skateboard. He got his cranberry juice, drinking it from the bottle. He's singing the song, um, and it was just amazing to me. And I just had to show that video. So again, transitioning into our presentation, if you will. So my presentation is called Stubborn Joy from When Times Aren't So Joyous. So again, my name is Dr. Jamal Myrick. I use the pronouns he, him, and his. And I want to actually direct you all very quickly to these photos here. And so I don't know if everyone is familiar, but just in case, let me go ahead and give a quick history lesson. So this is at Kent State. So if you're not familiar, the Kent State shootings in May 1970, we had a few students that was doing an anti-war protest, and a shooting happened from from the state, and a few the students were killed, and all they were doing was protesting, right? Fast forward about 10, 11 days later at Jackson State University, which is a historically Black college and university. The state was once again brought onto the campus and fired guns into the university, into this dormitory. So this is an actual photo from one of the dormitories at that time. And I feel like this is important as we're talking about joy, and we're talking about what's going on in the world right now. And then finally, this is from San Francisco State University during the fight for an ethnic studies department. And so, again, this is important that folks are aware of like the stuff that we're experiencing. A lot of times it's not new, right? The game, to me, the game hasn't changed. It's just the players in it. And as well as the rules have changed, right? But the concept of the game has not changed at all. The rules and the players that's in the game, they've changed. And so when I talk about when times aren't so joyous, you look at these photos and you understand, like, even then, right? Like, the state is out here enacting violence on peaceful people, right? They're enacting violence on folks that are exercising their right, yet they still had to show up, right? They still had to create space for themselves, to keep fighting, to keep hope, to keep enacting change. So I wanted to put that out there. And again, quick history lesson. I know I want to make sure I'm cool on time too. So you're like, who the heck is this guy? So if you was with us a little bit earlier, John actually kind of shared a little bit about me. I give a real quick synopsis. So I'm a doctor, not like a medical doctor, because I can't save your life like that, but I can save your life in education. And so I'm really, really excited about the opportunity to be here. I'm excited about this, if you will, title that I have, because it provides me access to continue supporting Black scholars as well as others in higher education. I'm a father. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm a father of a beautiful newborn named KJ, husband. Shout out to my lovely partner in crime, my wife. I'm a brother on multiple levels. I'm a brother of Progressive Black Men Incorporated, which is an organization that I was initiated into back in undergrad so many years ago. I'm an actual brother, so I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. Love my siblings. And then also I'm a brother of the oldest, the coldest, and the boldest chapter, fraternity. Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the New Zealand chapter. So very, very, I take brotherhood, I take fellowship in such a way, because I experience it on so many different levels. And it's important to me as I'm sitting in this space with you all. Like I cherish brotherhood, and I cherish this moment being with you all today. I'm an SA Pro, so I'm a student affairs professional. Again, I work at the University of California, Riverside as the Director of African Student Programs, where I oversee all of the Black scholars on our campus. So my department is a Black Resource Center. We provide services and programs for all of our Black scholars here on our campus. I love storytelling, and I'm a wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan since 1998. I don't know how that happened, but you know, it ebbs and flows. So sometimes I'm watching it, sometimes I'm not. A lot of times I can just read about it. And then a really uninteresting fact about myself, I like to keep the heater on my ankles. Like, I know a lot of times folks are like, oh yeah, like, okay, like, tell me an interesting fact. I'm doing uninteresting facts. I think those are better. So again, thank you for welcoming me into this space. Thank you for just, again, allowing me to just share some time with you all. So moving forward, and I want to do a quick pause here and say, you know what? I feel thankful today, as I'm sure other people are who are lucky to know you. Again, I want to, because we're in this space as in this men and masculinity space, I always want people to know, like, I'm thankful for you all. I'm thankful for the conversation that I got to have with John. I'm thankful for the conversation and the engagement that I received with Adian as well as Nick. And I want to encourage you all to do the same for maybe another male identified person in your life today. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm thankful to know you. And then also, I just want to say, let me honor you by thanking you for being present wherever you are. So I don't know if you are kind of like us here on our campus, if there are still folks kind of nearby around, you might be joining us like in Alaska, Florida. And I had mentioned this a little bit earlier. I don't need to hear the Florida jokes. I've heard them all. Florida man jokes. I get it. Haha, we're good. But wherever you are, thank you for being present. Thank you for giving us your time and talent and your energy today, because you could have been anywhere, but you're here with us right now. So I definitely appreciate that. And always want to just say thank you. And I'm just so grateful for just being able to be present in this space, this virtual space with you all today. So let's take it back, right? Let's take it back. So December 31st, 2019, we ain't hit 2020 yet. So 2019 was like all-star year, right? Like you saw the LA Lakers, they got the championship this year. Not a Laker fan, but I'm a LeBron fan. And so, you know, this was like a really great year. My wife and I had completed our doctorates together. I had traveled around the world for a little bit. My wife and I had took some trips. I've received numerous awards for my work in diversity and education, equity and inclusion. And, you know, I was on fire in 2019. Life just seemed like, man, on the up and up in 2019, December 31st, 2019. My wife and I, we were like, we're going to go see Meg Thee Stallion, right? Like what really other great way to like bring in the year by seeing like one of your favorite artists. So 2019 for me was like all-star year. I had just joined, I just earned my membership into Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Means Atlanta chapter. So that's what you see right here. And, you know, I was actually doing a lot of building with a lot of the Black men in my circles, and like talking about vision boards and talking about how we can do this vision board program or event that I tried to do in January of last year. It didn't necessarily work out, but I was really trying for it for this year. Because again, I think these spaces are important. And I wrote a word for 2020. My word was unconquered. So that kind of gives you some context of where I was going into this year. Right. So again, a little bit more about my 2020 in the beginning, right? Like it seems so far away, but 2020 started out really good. My wife told me we were having a child. I was excited. Oh my gosh. I was like, wait, what? Like, are you serious? Yes. Okay, cool. My brothers and I, we were actually planning a 3-week trip to East Asia. So we had literally scheduled out. We were going to Thailand. We were going to the Philippines. We were going to China for a little bit. Like we were literally going to be doing some island hopping. And I've traveled all around the world. I've never been to anywhere in Asia. So I'm like excited. I'm putting money away, ready to go. Again, the word is unconquered. I want to put that out there. That's the word, unconquered. Damn. So we're in like March. We're in the beginning of March. So tornadoes, presentations, and friends. Oh my. So in March, beginning of March, I'm at a conference. So these are my, I don't even consider them like friends. Like these are family to me. Like these folks are family. So I'm a part of an organization called ACPA. And within ACPA, I was on the board for 5 years for a subgroup, if you will, called the Pan-African Network. And so these are just some of my fellow Pan fam, so to speak. And we were just like, I was doing presentations, I'm leading conversations and the work that I was already doing. And I'm just excited. Then a tornado hit, just like randomly in Nashville. A tornado hit, folks are freaking out. We don't know what's going on. We're locked down in our hotel. We don't know what's happening. And that should have been a little bit of foreshadowing for what we're about to experience for this year. Now, mind you, super happy, super excited. And, I felt all the love. And then just like randomly, I got like a real bad like cold on the way back home. So it was weird. Again, the word is unconquered. The word is unconquered for this 2020. Now, like I said, I'm a wrestling fan. So if you don't know these gents, so this is The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, as a lot of folks call him. I will always know him as The Rock, and this is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this is WrestleMania 19. This is 2003. And this was like the last match, so to speak, of these two titans, right? So when you look at the Mount Rushmore of like wrestling, you're probably going to see these two guys. And they've had a long rivalry, long history. And when I think about 2020, when I got back from that conference, this is literally how I felt at that time. It just like I got back, I saw my scholars for a little bit, and everything shut down. We shut down, like there was an emergency meeting that was called, and it was like, nope, we are going to close the university. And I feel like I'm The Rock. I'm like, I'm electric. I'm excited. I'm happy to be back. And this is 2020, right? And this 2020 is looking at me like, what you going to do? Right? This is where folks are just starting to talk about coronavirus. And, knowing me at that time, I didn't really hear a lot about coronavirus. And I thought it was a virus that was, you know, down in Corona, California. Like, just again, being honest and being on, like, honest with y'all. I was like, oh, y'all, you know, like asking my students, I'm like, "Hey, did y'all hear about that virus in Corona? Please be careful." But then, like I said, everything shut down. So coronavirus, right? So coronavirus happening. These are my scholars. So this was from a game. Our athletics department actually booked out our whole entire arena for our Black scholars for a night during Black History Month. And it was an opportunity for our scholars to be highlighted. It was an opportunity for our scholars to feel included, to feel supported, to feel valued, to feel seen. And so you even see here, we even got like custom made, like the athletics department actually developed shirts that we designed, right? Like one of my scholars designed this shirt, "Every day is Black History." Right. And so this was our community. Now, mind you, there's a lot more, but this was just some of the folks that came that night. And I look back at this photo because this was like one of the last photos that we were all together. And I look at that photo and I'm happy that we had the moment. And I'm also grieving because for some of these folks, that was the last time I saw them because we had the game. I went away for the conference, came back for a few days, and then boom, coronavirus hit and everything shut down. And so now I'm in this space where now I'm grieving, right? I'm grieving my scholars because I'm not seeing them. I'm grieving missed opportunities because at this time, you know, I was supposed to be traveling and we haven't necessarily got to, oh, we're going to be closed down till the summer. So that ain't happened yet. So I'm like, I'm still holding out. We're still trying to plan out this 3-week trip. It ain't happened yet. And so it's, you know, we're grieving. I'm grieving my scholars, right? I'm grieving like not being able to see them in person because this is why I do the work, right? So not only that, let's fast forward to April, right? So now we're going to move to April, May, and June. And then and for me, that was a moment going back to the conversation that I was having with John a little bit earlier, where boundaries had to go up. Constant hurt and pain in my community with the outrageous violence towards Black bodies. Ahmaud Arbery murdered, right? Breonna Taylor murdered. Tony McDade murdered. George Floyd murdered, right? And so literally all these things I felt like happened in succession of each other. And I remember with Ahmaud Arbery happened, you know, my scholars, we created some space to kind of dialogue about that. But then all these other things where Black bodies were being murdered, lynched, even, all these things are happening. And it's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. We can't keep having these conversations, right? Like we can't keep having these conversations because there's a lot of pain, right? So not only are we mourning and grieving the lives of these are just four, right? This is just four folks that have been murdered, right? There's a plethora of more, right? And I would strongly encourage folks, if you haven't, to take a look at, there's a report called the Say Her Name report, and it features a lot of Black women. It's a report about Black women who have been murdered by state-sanctioned violence and their interactions as Black women with policing in the state. So I would strongly encourage folks to take a look at that report as well, because Black women, to me, they don't get as highlighted as some of the other Black men that get highlighted. And so I want to also make sure that I honor these folks and recognize these folks because this was a huge part. These lives were a huge parts of our lives, of my life anyway. Like I remember trying to call for Breonna Taylor to get justice. I remember calling the DA's office. I remember writing letters and sending things out to get folks to say, like, let's get justice to happen. I remember donating for George Floyd and donating to some of the organizations that was focused on serving Black people in Minnesota. I remember learning about the Tony McDade situation, which happened where I went to school. I went to school at Florida State University, and this situation actually happened in Tallahassee, Florida. And so I remember this. And Ahmaud Arbery, I remember hearing about what happened. And then, like I said, like these are Black folks who've impacted our lives in a variety of different ways. I know for me, it touched me in a very different way. And even thinking about Breonna Taylor, I actually know, so one of my friends is actually cousins with the boyfriend that was with Breonna Taylor, right? And so, like, when I say that these moments hit me in a very different way, please believe that I'm telling the truth. And so, all like again, trying to find some space to hold all of this while going through a pandemic that's disproportionately affecting Black and brown people, right? There's so much that was going on from April, May, and June that really just hurt. Like I remember sitting in hurt, like in true pain at that time. And then in July 30th, to be exact. So sorry, July 31st. So I received a phone call from my dissertation chair, and she was crying, and I'll never forget. She is just like, Luke is gone, and I was like, what? She's like, Luke is gone. Luke has passed away, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying? She's like, he's gone. He died. Um, and I just remember being so hurt, so torn to hear this news. Because just last year we graduated with our doctorates. Just last year we were just talking about all the things that we were doing. Just a few weeks before I got that phone call, we were just talking, just connecting with each other via text. And so to hear that my friend, my brother in the struggle, my brother through my doctoral program, one of the most rigorous academic experiences I've ever been a part of, is gone. That hurt. That hurt me to a core that I haven't felt in years. Right. And so, I mean, so these are the things that's framing my 2020. So I think it's important that I'm showing you the timeline, right? Like of what's happening, right? Before we kind of get into joy. And that kind of brings me to where I was. I'm like, what the heck is going on? We're having a pandemic, both the viral piece as well as the anti-Blackness pandemic that's going on, the racism piece that's going on. My Black scholars, I'm not seeing them. They're home, or because some of them didn't have homes, right? And so I am hurting for them. I'm hurting for the Black lives that were lost. I'm hurting for the folks that's in the streets protesting, trying to affect change. There's so much going on. And then to add on top of that, I hear that a close friend of mine is no longer with me. Somebody that I literally had conversation with just, I want to say at least 2 weeks prior, just had a conversation with him. We were just talking and now he's gone. And so to me, I just didn't know what was happening. All the while, I'm trying to make sure my wife is good as she's pregnant. I'm also writing this book. I'm also still trying to show up in these spaces myself. And it was hard. It was difficult to do, right? And so very, very important that I kind of give you all this context as we move forward before we even talk about stubborn joy. And so I want to, again, like to do pause for the cause. And as a reminder, I want you all to treat yourself today because you deserve it. I really do hope at some point during our time together, I do get to connect with each of you. For those that are listening and watching this, I do hope that I get to connect with you in other spaces, whether it's a BSU meeting or another program or event. I definitely want to connect with you all. And then, like I mentioned, as a reminder, just treat yourself today and whatever that means for you. So if that's just, shutting off the computer, going for a walk, calling your best friend, what have you, treat yourself today because you deserve it. With everything that's going on, you definitely deserve it. And so want to make sure that I do that because that's important, especially, of course, like all folks. And I'm really saying to Black men to treat yourself today because you definitely deserve it. And then that brings me to the concept and the idea of stubborn joy. And so these are just some photos through our time in our program. So again, Dr. Luke Makwakwa, to give you some context about why stubborn joy comes from him. And so with stubborn joy, like I mentioned in the conversation with John a little bit earlier, this man had it. So to give you some background about him, so he actually came to the United States from Zimbabwe, South Africa, and he made it. He literally figured it out, right? Like his family was still in South Africa, and he figured it out here. And he went through a lot. Like he just became like he had applied for citizenship multiple times and finally like got it just a few years ago. And I remember that was actually while we were in the program, and we celebrated that. Um, but you would never know that anything was going wrong for this guy. You would just like, he always welcomed you, my brother, like my brother. And when we was in London, because we actually did a study abroad, and he and I would like really sit down and have some real genuine conversation. And I'll never forget, we were sitting outside of our hotel and we were just kind of talking about some of the things that he was going through. And I was like, Luke, you never said anything. And he was like, brother, I'm just still finding the happiness. I'm still finding the joy. I'm still finding peace. Yet this man is going through all these things, right? And unfortunately, he's not here with us now in the physical, but he's definitely here with me in the spirit, in the spiritual. And so I was hurt. I was taken aback. When you go back through our album of our doctoral program, you're going to see this. A lot of times it was he and I that were together. He showed up to my wedding. He found out about my wedding. He was like, my brother, I'm going to be there. This man drove about an hour and a half from from the Temecula area to come to my wedding. And he was only there for like 40 minutes. But he was like, I couldn't allow this day to go by and not support my brother. Right. So we're talking about men and masculinities too, where it's like this man saw me as a brother and vice versa. And so when I talk about brother in the struggle, when I talk about the connection that he and I have, the bond that we have, it's a very real bond. Like I broke bread with this man's family, right? And vice versa. And so when I think about stubborn joy, like he taught us, unknowingly taught us that. So fast forward to, I want to say September, we had a memorial. Our doctoral program had a memorial for him. And my dissertation chair, Dr. Tabitha Jones-Jolivet, she mentioned this idea that Luke always had stubborn joy. Like in the face of adversity, in the face of whatever was going on, he still showed up with a smile. He still showed up asking, how can I help you? What can I do to support you? Right. And always that was always his thing. Like, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? How can I make you smile today? And would be smiling, we would be in his car driving, and he would put on some Afro beats. He actually introduced me to some awesome Afro beats musicians. And just thinking about what joy and stubborn joy meant for him, despite everything that he had going on in his life. Right. And when I go back to that memorial that we did over Zoom, and we created some space to just kind of talk about him, that was a theme with almost every single person that spoke on that line, on that Zoom call. The joy that he had for life, the zest that he had for his family was true, and it was consistent. It was real. And so when I think about stubborn joy, I always want to go back to this man who was the epitome of stubborn joy to me, and how he imparted that wisdom unknowingly into how I show up and how I reframe in my life today.